13-year-old Lavon Williams, who attends the Irving Wilson School in the Pines, St. Michael. Lavon is visually challenged, but today she displays her triumphant skill in tribute to the man to whom she owes her future and her pride. This is a story of pride, of courage, of commitment. It is, in every sense, a story of vision. It is a story of a man and a dog and the fight they led against a stubborn superstition which condemned generations of Barbadians to prisons in their homes. This is the story of Irving St. Clair Wilson.
"50 years ago, a mother having a child with a disability used to take the responsibility, who thought that she had committed a sin. It was a sin of commission or sin or omission, but that she was the person to be blamed for the child's disability. And that was one of the biggest problems I had when I came into work with the disability. You had to convince, say, a parent who had a deaf child that within the first 3 months of that child's concept, that there was a definite chance. A tutor once said to us in a lecture that when you have a child and it is a normal child, that you think that you have to think that you were lucky, that there was more possibility to have a deformed child, a child who was disabled, than to have a normal child. And that was surprising to me.
Irving Wilson was born in the parish of St. John on May the 22nd, 1918, just as World War I rolled towards its brutal end. He received his early education at the Ebenezer Primary School and began teaching at the Ebenezer School in 1934 at the age of 16. He attended the Royal Training Institute in 1944 and the Eardiston Training College from 1948 to 1949. Wilson's first ambition was to become, like his uncle, a policeman, considering himself an excellent candidate for detective work. But the violent death of his uncle while on duty brought strong opposition from his grandmother and the change in his dreams. Teaching took Irving Wilson from Ebenezer Primary to Shrewsbury Primary to St. Luke's Boys, St. Giles Boys, and finally to the Parkinson Secondary School. A conflict with the principal of the Parkinson School over the methods of discipline prompted Wilson to rethink the course of his career. A stern disciplinarian who had earned the nickname Lashes, recalls the incident which was, as he puts it, a meeting of the waters.
It was about the 5th year. It was actually the 5th year at Parkinson. I used to describe it as a meeting of the waters when I was at Parkinson, because we had taken in children from about 5 or 6 different schools.
This was the first Parkinson intake?
Yeah.
Right.
5 of us, boys and girls. We would look at it like this. the bad habits of school A came to meet with the bad habits of school B, with bad habits of school C, and we found that the school was behavior was deteriorating.
This was a new challenge for you.
As Roy would tell you, I hate indiscipline. When I was at St. Giles, you get to school at 9 o'clock or you're meeting me. I hated the indiscipline. So we got together and decided that we were both, the older teachers, Ernest Weir, Merton Robinson, and our furrows, we got together and we decided that we were going to pull up this discipline, this conduct. So the first thing we thought of was the assembly in the morning. And one of the things we decided that certain teachers would pick up vantage points and see that the children marching orderly into the prayers. One morning, I was at my point and the boy came running up, passing all the others, and I stopped him. The boy stopped, teacher came up, "What are you doing there?" Boy replied, "Mr. Wilson, I was running and Mr. Wilson stopped me." And he grabbed the boy, "Mr. Wilson is not your teacher," and pulled him there. I salute, fall out. A few days after, somebody mentioned it to the head teacher. And he called me up and started to take a turn on me. I said, "What have I done?" He said, "You should report it." I said, "Me?" And I said to him, I said, "Sir, the next train in, when it is leaving, I'll be on it." He said, "What the hell do you mean by that?" I said, "That's what I said." And about 2 or 3 weeks after, I saw this ad in the papers for the teaching of the deaf. I said, "Aye, I'm applying. And if it's successful, I go on."
Wilson admits he never liked being confined to the classroom. Teaching, yes, but no restriction to the classroom. His opportunity would indeed come from outside the classroom.
I was living in Prospect at the time, and I had a very vicious dog, and it got up one day and attacked a boy. Bit him, he mauled him. I had to rush from St. Giles down there to take the dog over, because as soon as the men in the district went to take him off, he would then leave the boy and attack them. And I had to take him to the doctor every morning for 3 weeks. This is what I learned after that boy was dead. And I didn't know that. And I promised myself that I would do everything to see that he get an education.
The year was 1965, and Irving Wilson would become the first Barbadian to receive officially sponsored training in the care and treatment of the deaf. But traveling to Manchester University and the United Kingdom would not be easy for Wilson or for his young family.
When they interviewed me, well, you know, they go into your background and whatnot. B.B. Ward told me, "Man, I don't think you should go to England," because I was too far in debt. He didn't think that I could handle it. The only body I did owe was you, because if I'd known that, I would have got a piece from you too. But, so they offered me a school in St. Peter. And I never took things for granted. When I looked at the salary, I was going to get $10 a month more. than what I was getting as senior teacher at Parkinson. They had a house at Barbados, and I would have to live in it, or I would have to pay rent for it if I didn't live in it. Going to England would pay more because I would leave my salary with my wife, and I would break for myself in England.
Wilson had long held a deep concern for the welfare of the disabled, a concern that reached far back into his boyhood years.
And another thing, when I searched myself and looked back at myself, that happened is, I only came up after looking at myself, I came up in St. John, lived next to a blind person, or a lady, who I thought was as perfect as any sighted person. She could cook, she washed, she did everything. She kept me on the straight line. And I think that had something to do with it.
Wilson knew even then that Barbadians did not have a good record in the treatment of disabled persons. Superstition and ignorance created a stigma which made life a misery for the disabled. Children suffered most.
We have changed, yes, but not to the stage that I would personally like. Yes, there were days when a parent, particularly the mother, would think it a sin if she produced a child that had some disability. She thought that she had committed a sin in producing this child with a disability. It was one of the first and one of the biggest problems I had to convince parents that she did not commit a sin, that it was no way her fault. It had gone to the extent where those children were kept in the house. They were not known in the district in some cases.
It was the condition of deafness that was foremost in Wilson's plans and motivations. And it was deafness, Wilson had determined, which held the most severe consequences for those so afflicted.
We were fortunate in Barbados that we have never had a real problem with German measles, because that is our biggest culprit. Rubella. Because we did not have that, although you could see from our statistics that there were little pockets, particularly in the St. James area and in the St. John area, there were pockets. Thank God we have, and I brag about this, we have one of the best health systems that in the West Indies and probably in the greater part of the world. Because with the injection of the mothers prevents a lot of the rubella. So there's a development, as we all know from my experience, of a child. There's a stage when the child creeps. There's a stage when the child has trying to talk. At about 13 months old, that child is beginning to babble, what we call babble. That is speech readiness. If you let that slip, and if the child is deaf, that is going to slip. And you have to pick it up.
For centuries, deafness, known as a silent disability, had defied effective treatment. For centuries, it was believed that the deaf could not be educated, that they were, in fact, intellectually inferior. That is, until a 16th century Italian physician discovered that persons who became deaf after the age of 5 had by then acquired rudimentary language patterns which could be developed through special education. Teaching techniques which could rescue the deaf from their world of silence. And Manchester University was among the leading centers in the teaching of such techniques.
Two things I had made up in my mind. I was not going to get looking for any certificate. I was not, if I didn't pass to get a certificate in the teaching of the deaf. All I want is the knowledge. I want the practical things, what to help, something to help me to manage the program when I get back here and manage it successfully. That is all. I do the academical side, I wasn't interested in me. I wanted to be able to manage a program that is suitable to Barbados.
Wilson returned to Barbados in 1967 and was seconded to the recently established School for the Deaf. And by then, the government of Barbados had already taken some steps to arrest any threats of disability among the young, deafness and blindness chief among them. The Barbados Association for the Blind and the Deaf, formed in 1957, had led the way in alleviating the plight of persons with these disabilities.
Yes, I think we have made some headway, but one of my objectives with the schools, I have said schools because there are two, and let me inject here that I was never agreed with the Association for the Blind and the Deaf. You have two diseases that are incompatible. You bring a deaf child in here with a blind one. What is going to happen? I am blind and I can talk. You are deaf and you can't talk, so I can't understand what's going on with you. They cannot do anything together.
Wilson continues to advocate separation of arrangements for the treatment and education of the deaf and the blind.
The public at large had more sympathy for the blind because the deaf is the silent disability. Right? So that being formed, and let me tell you this, that I got the backing from the Manchester that they should be separated. Okay. It is probably easier to deal with a blind person than to deal with a deaf. Because let's also realize that one of the chief gateways to learning is through ear.
In 1968, the institution became a government primary school. Wilson's challenge was threefold: finding staff for the school, persuading skeptical parents, and getting the support of stubborn officials. His overall objective was to convince Barbadians, especially those afflicted, that no disability in itself should be a barrier to the pursuit of a useful and satisfying life.
When I came back here, there was not one person that if I wanted information or wanted help, technically, I could turn to in Barbados. So what I had to do, and what, thankful to Sir William Douglas, he helped me a lot in traveling from place. I went as far as Israel, and I think that Israel had one of the best deaf programs around the world.
So let us name them from top again.
Wilson undertook the task of identifying, interviewing, and persuading persons considered suitable to teach in the school. He traveled the length and breadth of Barbados, walking back roads, knocking on doors, searching for those children who needed the services of such a school.
We had to find ways and means of finding these children. And one of the means that we used was the hospital gave me the names of these children, and I would go and visit them. The Ministry of Education was very helpful to us, really gave the assistance, and they allowed me to pick teachers for the unit, which I thought, because you had to get a teacher who was prepared to go the extra mile.
Wilson would personally transport the children to and from the school. Suitable premises for the school remained a problem.
First thing, we went to the garrison, and they offered me Leonard Banfield. He was he was enough fun, and he in his way helped me. He said, Irving, all I have here is a hut. It is galvanized size, galvanized roof. It's about 18 by 10.
Hot.
Hot! I could stop there after 11 o'clock.
Wilson learned that the police station at Britain's Hill, St. Michael, was vacant and moved quickly to secure it. It would be the first home of the school for the blind and the deaf in Barbados. Irving Wilson had large plans, but no money for his school. He was compelled to look beyond the sources of support normally provided by government.
What I did, I went and joined the Lions Club. And up walked, what is it, the two brothers, one was, can't remember the name now. But he walked up to my car and he said, Irving, how are you getting on? He said, the Lions got $100,000. Apply for it. I said, can't apply. He said, the ministry apply. So I went and talked to the officer in charge, Gordon Brathwaite. And he said, no, we can't beg for this. Beg. You go try something. I said, okay. I went to Mrs. Ford, Harry Ford's wife. She was secretary of the association. She said, no problem. You can apply. And they applied, and we got this $100,000. And they put up a school then in the Pine with the $100,000 to accommodate 41 children. I think we started off with about 20 or so. And in 2 years, we had 81.
In his travels across Barbados, searching for disabled persons hidden away from view, he observed that in many cases, blind and deaf persons manifested exceptional powers of recall and dexterity in specific activities.
When I brought the idea of mop making and thought it would be a good project, because all in the back of my mind in dealing with the deaf and the blind was, how are these people going to exist when they leave school? Are we preparing them to be able to exist? And I was hoping that before I had left, I would have been able to put in a number of small money-earning activities that to employ them. I passed the idea to Spencer, who was, in my opinion, was a genius. And Spencer man said to me, "Give me a week, man." When Spencer came back, my mouth went, I believe that we got my jaw now hurting me. Spencer said, "Okay, I have a piece of tool, or palette, or whatever you call it. I will be able to make 3 types of marks. An 8-inch mark, 10-inch, and a 12. And I can make a mark in 2 minutes." What do you hear? So he demonstrated it to me. It worked. In the first 6 months of that mark making, we made $27,000.
Wilson knew, from his training and his experience, that physical deficiency did nothing to impair human intelligence, that the physically challenged were both trainable and employable, the deaf and the blind in particular. One case remains vivid in his memory.
When we picked up Senator Eiffel, when we picked up her, there was nothing she had never gone to school. We picked her up. And right away we realized this girl was just really intelligent. And she had a teacher. She was lucky enough that we were able to put one teacher to her. And she came through flying.